of other things, we'll go straight with the discussion for this afternoon. So for this afternoon, we will talk about monetary policy. I believe that you were already done with money, wherein you discussed the evolution of money, tama ba? The evolution of money, the functions of money, and the values of money last meeting, and the importance of the money in our economy. So we will continue with monetary policy in connection with money. Sorry kayo, I really have to make this fast, kay. Medyo taas-taas yung case siya. Sorry ha. Pero anyway, please tell me if I'm too fast already. Wait lang. Let me just check on something. Already. Okay, so points for discussion for this afternoon. We will discuss and define what monetary policy is, since that will be our topic this afternoon, and what are the types of monetary policy, and lastly, the tools for controlling the money supply. Now, since you have already an idea of the reason why money is used in our country, I hope you already know the reason why we are using money as a medium of communication, economic communication, we will go to the policy implemented in our country. Now, if you can still remember, I don't know if I mentioned this one, that it's not a good thing that we have so much money circulating in our economy. Have I told you that one? Naingnan ba tamo na it's not good na daghan kaayo kwarta naga-circulate sa economy? Did I tell you that one? Or was that mentioned during your last discussion? Oo or wala? Pero na-mention ako, wala. Wala po. Na-mention ako. Anyway, sige. So, it's not a good thing to have so much money circulating in the economy. Nga no gani? You can give me a reason why is it's not really good. It's not nice to have so much money in our economy. Nga naman. Nga no, di man maayo dagan kita kwarta in our economy. What would be the effect of that one? Sure, mugamay ang value sa currency. Yes, true. That is one reason. But primarily, aside from the value of the currency going down or decreasing, the main point there, of course, is related to inflation. If you know what inflation is, yes, inflation is the sudden increase of or the aggregate or the overall increase in the prices of goods. So nga naman mo taas ang ay nga naman mo mahal ang presyo kung daghan kaayo kwarta. Just imagine if all of us have money or daghan kitag kwarta, 'di ba? That only means that all of us can afford anything. And what will be the effect of that to our resources? Main thing is, of course, it could lead to shortage of resources. So the only thing is that people, for them to be able to acquire the goods and service that they want, they will bid higher prices, or people will bid higher prices because primarily we can already afford it, 'di ba? Inana basta gani, if we try to relate it with limited edition products, if na gani limited edition, since we know that it's limited, we are willing to pay so much more even if it's very pricey. And the same goes with the products. If there is inflation, if there is an increase in the prices of goods, coupled by an increase in the money or the supply of money circulating in our economy, then that only means that people can afford to buy anything that they want. So in turn, what will happen is that prices will also increase, knowing that many people can already afford to buy these things. So mo na siya ang effect, and that is what the government doesn't, I mean, that is what the government doesn't want to happen. Dili gina nila gusto nga mutaas ang presyo. That's why they are stabilizing the prices through controlling the money supply. So what is monetary policy? Before we um, go into detail about controlling the money supply, what is monetary policy? Now, monetary policy is a tool used by central banks. In our case, our central bank is, do you know unsa tong central bank? When you say central bank, it's actually the bank of all the banks. And the one who implements the monetary policy. Yes, it's BSP or Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So what they do is they use this tool, the monetary policy, to influence the money supply. So in order to stabilize the prices, in order to control the money supply, the monetary policy is being implemented para makontrol ang money supply, as I've said. So BSP or Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas is our country's central bank which implements the monetary policy. So what they do is, Bangko Sentral is not a government-regulated institution. Although, dili siya private, it's not a private company, but it's not a government-controlled institution. Nga naman, they have their own autonomy in terms of implementing their whatever policy that they want, and they enjoy national government autonomy. So dili sila controlled kung si iingon sa president. It doesn't really, I mean, maminaw sila pero they have a full autonomy in terms of their pursuit of their mandated responsibility. So they are not controlled by the government. Though public siya, dili siya private institution, whatever they do, it's the governor of the central bank who decides the monetary policy that needs to be implemented in our country. So again, when you say monetary policy, it is a tool used by central banks, in our case in the Philippines, BSP, to control or influence the money supply or the amount of money circulating in our economy. Am I clear so far? Okay, ra? Very technical discussion for this afternoon. So there are two types of monetary policy being implemented. The first one is the expansionary monetary policy, and the other one is contractionary. Now, how are these two policies different? Monetary policies different. So when we say expansionary, it means to expand. So mo na i-remember, expand. So expansionary monetary policy is a policy which expands or increases the supply of money in the economy. So if there are cases wherein the government feels na, ay okay, gamay ra kaayo ang money nga ga-circulate in our economy, and they want to encourage yun na people will buy to boost the economy, people will purchase goods, and mabantayan nila nga gamay ra money ga supply in our economy. So what they will implement is the expansionary monetary policy. And in detail, I will explain that one later on. And how do they do expansionary or apply expansionary monetary policy? Just for you to understand, when you say expansionary, basically to increase the monetary supply of our economy. Now, another thing, by the way, before I forget this one. Now, how does BSP know if gamay na ang circulate na money in our economy? How do they analyze na, okay, kailangan ta mag-disperse og more money in our economy, ay dapat i-control na to, dili ta magkuan, dapat kinatay buhaton para dili daghan ang supply of money in our economy. How do they know if the money supply in our economy is enough? So basically, since they are the central bank, they control all the banks. So naa sila'y authority among all the banks. And when they release money, it is through the banks. So whatever assets or money ang gina-declare sa mga banks, dira mo na ang basis sa BSP in releasing money or hoarding money in order to control the money supply. So through the banks gina. Now, muna kung giingon before, remember the injections and leakages. Diba, if there is a leakage, when you save money in your piggy banks without even depositing it or using it, what will happen is that it will become a form of injection. Nga naman, dili naman siya mabantayan. So, inana ang ginabuhat ni BSP. So, they monitor it through the banks, how much money or the amount of money circulating in our economy. So, through the bank. So, again, Expansionary, to expand or increase the money supply. Contractionary is the opposite, to contract, meaning to decrease the money supply in our economy. Claro ba? Am I clear? Okay. So let's proceed. So why is there a need to control the money supply? So this is what I told you a while ago. Now, the role of BSP, they have three major roles. Two lang akong iingon because these are the only goals that are related to our topic. So the goal of BSP is to maintain price and at the same time to stabilize finances. So price stability and financial stability are the main goals of BSP, the pillar of BSP. Now, for BSP, the main role that they have is to control the prices of the goods. That's why they monitor inflation rate. Unsa man ang inflation rate? It is actually the percentage of the increase in the prices of goods every year. So dapat, I think the normal one should be mga 4% lang of increase in the prices of goods and services. So dapat ang inflation rate is around 4% and dapat ma-maintain na siya because pangit man kaayo i-fluctuating ang presyo, 'di ba, sa goods and services except karon sa gasolina. But generally for all the prices of goods and services, dapat stable lang yun ang increase or ang decrease sa prices of goods and services. And that is the reason why they have to maintain prices is to ensure sustainable economic growth and better living standards. Of course, if you don't know or if the prices are unpredictable, diba, how can we even budget our money? How can we allocate our resources properly? And at the same time, if the prices keep on fluctuating, there will be a tendency that the money or the income that our family has will not be enough for our daily needs anymore. So muna, kailangan stable yun ang prices sa goods and services. And to stabilize the prices, money should be controlled. The money circulating in the economy should be controlled because as I've said, if taas ra kaayo ang presyo sa mga palitunon, sa mga palitunon, and at the same, if daghan na kayo kwarta circulating in our economy, then it would trigger an increase in the price of goods and services. So mo na nga ang ginabuhat ni BSP is stabilize ang price through controlling the money supply. Nasabtan? Nasabtan ba? Ganun kailangan i-control ang money supply kay para ma-stabilize ang prices and dili siya mag-fluctuate. Claro? Am I clear with that? How about the others? Am I clear? Okay. The other goal or the other objective of BSP is to stabilize finances. And when you say finances, diba, I told you a while ago that the BSP or central banks are considered as the bank of all the banks. So what they do is they regulate the banks to enhance resilience when disruption arise. So they are the ones na monitoring and regulating the activities of the banks to ensure that when there are crises or mga unexpected na mga mishaps in our economy, the economy can still float. What do you mean by can still float? We can still overcome and do what we can do for our economy without affecting the living or the standard of living of the people. Although na siya gamay nga impact, just like for the pandemic, diba? The reason that we are okay ang circulation sa tong kwarta, okay ang although nagmakitaan man nato ang increase in the prices of goods and services, but it's not so painful compared to other countries because of what the government or what BSP has implemented para dili kaayo inanak kasakit sa bulsa sa mga consumers. Because honestly, if there is no BSP or no monetary policy implemented, siguro sa una, before pre-pandemic, ang price sa corned beef, kanang bitaw sa Pure Foods, kima around 60, karon kima 90 naman, almost 100. If there is no proper implementation of monetary policy, it could skyrocket until 150 pesos. So inana siya mo na nga important kaayo ang monetary policy, especially ang pag-control sa money supply. Okay, so moving on, so as I've said, price stability is one of the goals of BSP. When we say price stability, it refers to a condition of low and stable inflation. Muna akong ingon, dapat dili gataas, gababa, or dili kayo inanakadako ang pag-increase sa mga prices sa goods and services. And the only way to preserve price stability is to control the supply of money in the economy. So just to give you an idea or to refresh you, inflation is the general increase in all prices. When we talk about inflation rate, it is the annual or the yearly percentage change in the overall price level in our economy. Okay ba? Are we still on the same page? Dili ra ba info overload? Klaro pa? Klaro? Okay, so now let's proceed to controlling the money supply. So again, we control money supply to ensure that our prices are stable. So the money supply, the supply of money in our economy is important to regulate price levels. So to do this, there are many things, or there are three major tools to control the money supply. So it depends na lang dayon how these monetary policy tools are implemented. Is it the reason why this tool is implemented is para i-expand? Expansionary ba siya? Or is it contractionary? So the first monetary tool, policy tool, is reserve requirement. What do you mean by that? Reserve requirement refers to the percentage of bank deposits that banks must set aside in deposits with BSP which they cannot lend out. What do you mean by this one? Let's say, for example, we have BDO. Example lang ha. Example lang ganyan siya. And ano rani, theoretical rasad ang data nga akong gamiton. Let's say, for example, BDO and BPI. So they are the banks that, the commercial banks that we know at present. When we say reserve requirement, it refers na a portion of the total assets or the bank deposits of that certain commercial bank should be deposited to BSP. Ano siya pasabot? So if there is, let's say, 100 million na total bank deposits from the people bank deposits to BDO, kanang 100 million, dapat a portion of it should be deposited to BSP. Ngano man, ngano i-deposit man siya? Because kani siya nga portion of money is the reserve requirement, and this money should not be lent to other people. So the main point here, ang main goal gid sa mga banks is magpa-deposit and magpa-loan. Ana magid na, depositing for savings purposes and borrowing or loan. Muna gid na siya. Muna siya ang sistema sa bangko. Mag-loan ka or mag-save ka. So kung mag-save kag money, that is what you call deposit. If mag-borrow kag money, that is what you call loans. So therefore, the total deposits, bank deposits in a certain bank, muna siya ang total assets kibaling i-declare nila sa BSP. So if maingon lugar si BSP nga, okay, the reserve requirement for this quarter will be 10% of bank deposits. I hope, okay ba? Or mas ganahan mo na kung sulat-sulaton. Ma-gets ra? Nagayaw-yaw ra ko? Okay ra? So let's say, for example, that out of 100 million na bank deposits sa BDO, maingon din si BSP nga, okay, reserve requirement for this quarter will be 10%. What does that mean? It means that out of the 100 million na bank deposits sa BDO, 10% of it should be set aside and deposited to BSP because they cannot lend this money or this percentage of money for reserve reasons. Muna siyang always gid na dili gid na mawala na gid na reserve requirement. Meaning dili na nila ipa-loan, dili na nila ipa-borrow from the people because dapat ma-set aside na siya nga money. So out of the 100 million, pila man ang 10% of it? Pila 10%? So 100 million. Anybody? Pila? 10%. So we have 10 million. 10 million ba? 100 million. Ako yung ano? Yeah, 10 million. So meaning, ang kanang 10 million, dili na pwede ipa-borrow sa BDO. I-deposit na nila sa BSP. So pila na lang ang pwede nga mapalon sa BDO? Pila na lang man? They only have? Yes, 90 M. 90 million na lang. Kato yung 10 million, that will be the reserve requirement of BSP na bawal nila na ipa-loan, i-deposit na sa BSP. Now, what's the purpose of reserve requirement? This is a way of controlling the money supply. If BSP doesn't want na daghan kaayo kwarta nga ga-circulate in the economy, what BSP will do is they will increase the reserve requirement. Taasan na nila. Nga naman, it's because gamay ra pwede mag-loan nga kwarta, diba? So basically, kung pila ang bank deposits, the money na naa sa bank, mo na siya ang mag-circulate, ipa-borrow, i-save, i-borrow, magtutuyok ra na siyang kwarta. But if BSP will say nga, okay, 10% ang dili pwede, ay 10% ang reserve requirement, meaning 10% of the total money of the bank will be set aside and dili na siya ipaloan para dili na siya mag-circulate in our economy. Do you get the point there? Inana ang point sa reserve requirement. And imagine, this is implemented for all the banks anytime. I-deposit na siya sa BSP lang ga. Kana nga portion sa money. Yes, Miles.
Example, lugar share na 100 million ang bank share. Kanang 10 million share, kailangan dili na siya ipa-circulate sa economic shooting para dili siya limited na ang supply sa money.
Yes, true. Ana siya lang ga. So that the money will be controlled or the money supply in our economy will be controlled. So that's the point there. So if ever that they want to increase the supply of money circulating in the economy, what will they do with the reserve requirement? What do you think? Anybody? What will they do with the reserve requirement? If BSP wants to increase the supply of money circulating in our economy, what will BSP do with the reserve requirement? Zaman. Grabe, opposite gani. Kaganina, diba, I told you, if BSP wants to decrease, to contract the money supply, taasan niya ang reserve requirement, diba? Para mas dako ang maset aside na money nga dili mag-circulate in the economy. On the other hand, if BSP wants to release more money, increase the money supply, what will they do with the reserve requirement? I-decrease ang reserve requirement. Ana lang siya. And that is applied to all the banks. That is one monetary policy tool that they can do to control the money supply. So inana ila ang buhaton sa BSP. That is for reserve requirement. And that is not meant for spending. Iset aside ra gyud na siya. Okay? Nasabtan ba? Do you get my point? Clear si reserve requirement? Okay, the next one is, so I mean by changing the required amount of money that all banks must hold, the BSP then can control how much loans a bank can make, thus controlling how much cash a bank can release. So mura na ilang pwede ma-release sa public. Katong nabilin nga kwarta nga gikwaan na og reserve requirement. Clear? Am I clear? Nasabtan ba ang reserve requirement as a tool to control the money supply? Okay. Sige. So if Question, if nasabtan yun, if BSP, please tell me what type of monetary policy is being implemented, expansionary ba or contractionary? If the reserve requirement of all the banks has changed from 6% to 10%. Again, BSP implements that the reserve requirement for all the banks will be changed from 6% to 10%. What type of monetary policy is used or implemented? Again, if BSP implements a change in the reserve requirement of 6 to 10%, what type of monetary policy is that? Okay, it's
Contraction.
contractionary. So, i-decrease ang money supply because BSP has increased the reserve requirement. Thus, gamay ra nga money ang mag-circulate in the economy through the banks. Clear? Na siya ha? Next is we have discount rate. So another policy tool, monetary policy tool is discount rate. So this is another method or tool to control the money supply. Now, what is a discount rate? Are you familiar what an interest rate is? Kabalo mo unsay interest? Sige, let's say for example, si Aliana. Aliana here will borrow a money of like 100 pesos kay Jade. Mag-borrow siya 100 kang Jade. Nya si Jade, mingon si Jade nga, ay nanay tubo, nay interest rate. Ang interest rate dapat nimo kay 5%. 5% of the total borrowed money. So if ang i-borrow ni Aliana is 100, pila man ang 5% of 100? It's 5 pesos, right? Therefore, the money borrowed by Aliana from Jade is 100 pesos. Dapat, pagbalik ni Aliana sa kwarta, pagbayad niya, pila naman iyang total nga ibayad? Okay, it's already 105. That 5 pesos there is the interest. Okay? So, muna siya si interest rate. Now, how about in BSP? Now, since BSP is the bank of all the banks, if ever there is a need to borrow money, the banks, any type of banks can borrow from BSP. And that interest that BSP levies to the banks is what you call the discount rate. It's just another term. Interest ragya po na siya. Pero ang tawag lang is discount rate. Or it could be used, or it could be policy rate. Pero discount rate lang atong igamit. It's discount rate. Okay? So whenever banks borrow from BSP, the interest there, the term interest is what you call discount rate. Pero if ang mga tao mag-borrow sa banks, you call it interest rate. Pero ang banks na mag-borrow sa BSP, you call it discount rates. Question, can people borrow BSP? Yes or no? Can people borrow from BSP? No. Technically, no. Only banks can borrow from BSP. People can only borrow through different types of banks, maybe rural bank, commercial bank, or unsa pa na siya nga klase nga bank, but not directly to BSP. Only banks can borrow from BSP. And the interest of the banks when they borrow from BSP is what you call discount rate. Claro? Dili lang ga. Dili mapalit ang BSP actually. Kung pwede lang. Pero anyway, so nasabtan, discount rate is actually the interest rate of the money borrowed by the banks from BSP. Sure, gaborrow di ang mga banks sa BSP? Yes. Especially, ang way biya of earning sa mga banks is through loans. Kanang interest ni ilang ginapatong pag mag-borrow kag money, that is how they earn. So therefore, if they can have more loans released, then that means they can increase their profit. But the problem there is if wala na pud sila bank deposits, because basically ang ginagamit raman na kwarta para pang loan is kato ramang gi-deposit nga kwarta. So if they want to increase their profit, they can do that one by borrowing from BSP. So, pwede sila makaborrow o kwarta. So, the discount rate is the interest rate that the BSP charges when banks borrow from the BSP. So, let's say here, si bank kay mag-loan siya sa BSP o nakuha na niya ang kwarta, ang loan. Pagbayad ni bank naka-loan siya, so na-release na ang kwarta ni BSP, nag-borrow og 100 million si bank, si BPI lugar, nag-borrow og 100,000 na lang, 100,000 si BPI from BSP. Pagka-release sa kwarta, when BSP pays off that loan, it will be loan plus the discount rate or the interest rate. Okay? Inana siya. Sure, kung mangutang ang Pilipinas sa BSP na, padulong. Kung mangutang, no lang ga. Basically, it will, yes, BSP is the bank of the government as well. Pero naman land bank, it depends also of the treasury. Unsaon na nila. Kay, when we borrow money, it's not for the reason nga i-hoard ang kwarta, but it's for the reason to spend. So, i-disperse magyapon na i-distribute ra magyapon na ang kwarta. So dili na siya mag-take too long, but the transaction will happen through banks or through central banks. So yes, mapadulong siya, but no, it will not stay there for long since it will be used for other things. So kato siya, discount rate. So how is discount rate relevant in controlling the money supply? Now, when BSP increases the discount rate, that will discourage banks to borrow from BSP. Nga naman, taas mo kay interest, di ba? Mura na gud nagmangutang ka, pag mubo kayo ang interest, kung mangutang ka, mas ganahan ka mangutang. Nga naman, gamay raman ang tubo, di ba? Whereas, if the interest is so high, you will be discouraged in borrowing money. Same goes with banks. Dili na sila ganahan mag-borrow kung taas kaayo ang interest. Kung taas kani kayo ang discount or ang policy i-implement naman unsa may point. When banks borrow from BSP, that means BSP is releasing money in our economy. You get there? So pag mag-release, the moment gani mag-release na kwarta si BSP, that only means that expansionary gid siya nga monetary policy. Daghanon gid, madaghan gid ang money nga ga-circulate in the economy. Once the money goes to the hands of the banks, the circulate. So mo na nga, as long as napa siya sa BSP, wala pa na siya. Pag nanagani, pag ma-release na gani na siya from BSP to the banks, then that means money is already circulating in the economy. And that is really o kana na siya, dili na siya counted as expansionary. And they release money, kanang mga mag-borrow money ang mga banks, expansionary din na siya. So how do they control the discount rate? Now, para if they want to implement contractionary, what they will do is they will increase the discount rate. Taason nila. Nga naman, kung taas yung discount rate, di na naganahan mangutang ang mga bangko. Kaya maglisod din sila bayad, ana. Let's say that the discount rate is 10%. So kung mag-borrow ka og 100 million, 10 million imo ang patong, di ba? So imo ang bayaran na kay 110 million. Do you think that would be a win-win situation for the banks? It's really not beneficial for them. Mas dako ang cost than the benefits. Therefore, banks will really think na, okay, dili ko mag-borrow. So, meaning na, walay ma-release nga kwarta si BSP. And that is contractionary or expansionary. Kung taas yan discount rate. Contractionary or expansionary siya? Contractionary. Kaya gina-discourage man by increasing the discount rate, by increasing the interest of BSP to the banks, they are discouraging banks to borrow, meaning walay ma-release na kwarta. So it's contractionary. But if they want to increase the money supply, what they will do is they will decrease the discount rate. Babaan gid na ang discount rate. Nganong babaan? Kay para mas mag-borrow ang bank. Ganahan man na mag-borrow ang banks kay mas dagan sila pwede mapa-loan sa mga tao, increase the profit of the bank. So muna kung babaan gina ni BSP from 10 mahimo na lang 4%, ay ganahan kay ang mga bangko ana mag-borrow na sila money from BSP. Therefore, once BSP releases it, automatic gid na supply will increase. Do you get my point? Nasabtan ba ng discount rate? Claro? So that is another monetary policy tool. The last one is through open market operations or which we call bonds. So if natay mga natay stocks tapos tay bonds. Unsa man yung bonds? Bonds are actually kuan na siya. It's an open market operation and bonds are usually there to inani siya dagway. It's like a note bitaw that the government or whoever releases that bonds kay naa sila'y utang from you. How does that work? How does bonds work? Sige, let's try to analyze. Let's say this one. This is the government of the Philippine Island. Oh, diba? So this is an example of a bond. This bond is $1,000. So if mupalit ka ani, kung mupalit kag bond, it means that the government or whoever sold this bond is indebted to you. So utangan sila sa imua og kung pila ang value here. So it's like you, kung mupalit ka og bond, it means that for you, it's an investment. But for whoever sold that bond, it means na utang nako ni sa imwa and I'll be paying you that once this bond will mature. If you try to see the this one, na nakabutang diri 30-year 4.5% gold loan of 1922 due 1952. So it means that this bond will mature after 30 years. What do you mean by mature? Due date niya kay bali ba mag-due na siya. So ang pasabot ana, once the bond will mature, whoever paid for the bond, let's say ang nag-release ani kay kuan lugar, the Bureau of Treasury sa government. So pag mamaligya na gani, mag-auction na gani na sila og bonds, then mupalit lugar si Miles. So nagpalit og $1,000 si Miles nga bond, worth na bond sa Bureau of Treasury. So ang pasabot ana is this bond nga palit ni Miles will be matured after 30 years, and after 30 years the Bureau of Treasury should pay him that $1,000 plus the 4.5% nga gi-indicate sa bond. So di ba nakabantay ka ni siya? Di ba it's 4.5%. So meaning $1,000 ang mubalik ka Miles plus the 4.5% when the bond has already matured. Pag maabot na siya sa iyang due date, kaning 1952. Ay, joke. 1952. June 19. Yes. Sure daw, Bi, kung namatay ang nakapalit before makabayad. Actually, transferable man ang bonds. So, pwede na siya mabaligya. Or it could be the immediate family of the owner sa bond. As long as nara sa iya ang bond and pwede na siya ma-redeem, pwede na siya ma-claim sa treasury. So, inana ang bonds. So, how does that work in terms of controlling the money supply? Basically, when the government sells bonds to the public, whenever they auction bonds, it only means that they are, unsa man na siya nga klase nga monetary policy. Try to analyze. What type of monetary policy is that? When they are auctioning bonds and people will buy it. What do you think is the policy implemented? Is it contractionary or expansionary? Try lang imagine na maligya og bonds si Bureau of Treasury from the government. Is that contractionary or expansionary? Expansionary? Ano na lang, kang kinsa mapadulong ang kwarta? Yeah, it's contractionary. Contractionary siya. Kay if ever, let's say for example, Bureau of Treasury, by the way, is under, ano na siya ha, sa BSP. So, if mag-auction ganin na sila o gano, meaning ana, mag-contract na ang supply sa money. Mugamay na gid na siya. Ano man, mamalik ba ang mga tao, di ba? From the people ang money going to BSP. So, muna siya ang goal there. So, mo-contract na siya. Actually, there are a lot of reasons why they do open market operations like bonds. It could either be used for financing sa government, it can be used to control the money supply, or it can be used for para i-hoard lang ang kwarta na ina ng mga reasons. So, in that case, that is contractionary. But let's say, for example, what if BSP buys, magpalit siya og bonds from the government, buys, ito kayo yun? What if BSP buys bonds from the government? Is it contractionary or expansionary? Magpalit siya ha, magpalit siya og bonds sa government. Expansionary or contractionary? Diba I told you a while ago, autonomous si BSP, meaning they are not controlled by the government. So sila ragid na ang ga-implement sa monetary supply. So kung mo palit og kwarta, mo palit og bonds si BSP from the government, that is expansionary. Kay nga naman, mag-release siya kwarta. Si BSP ang mobayad og kwarta sa government. So therefore, money is released. The moment money is released, that is expansionary. If napalit siya. Pero if nag-sell siya, sama na, contractionary na din siya. So that is how bonds actually work. Another example, during the pandemic, ang gibuhat is, I think wait lang, nako ha. Ang gibuhat is BSP purchased government bonds to fund COVID-19 response measures. So isa na ilang gibuhat. So when BSP purchased government bonds, unsa na may nahitabo? Expansionary or contractionary? It's still, unsa man siya? Nagpalit si BSP sa government of bonds para para pangdagdag pondo sa COVID-19 measures. Still expansionary. Nag-release sila og kwarta. Kay para na ma-fund na kwarta in our economy because nag-COVID. So, kana siya, expansionary na siya. Pero kung mamaligya gani si BSP, then that's the time na contractionary na siya. Okay, when people buy or the government buys from BSP, then padulong sa BSP ang kwarta, that is contractionary. In a way, they are controlling the money supply by selling the bonds. Nasabtan ba? Am I clear of how bonds or open market operation works? Nasabtan? So that is also a way for the government to control the money supply. Am I clear? Nasabtan ba ang 3 and how it's used to contract and expand the money supply in our economy? So those are the 3 major tools that the central banks can use. This is not only for Philippines, actually for other countries, they also do this one. It just depends on how the central bank actually implements the policy or the tools. Clear? Am I clear? Any question? Any questions? Sige, let's try to analyze. Tell me if it's expansionary or contractionary. This one, selling of 10-year and 25-year global bonds by Bureau of Treasury to sustain COVID-19 response measures. Expansionary or contractionary? selling of 10-year bonds. 10-year and 25-year global bonds by Bureau of Treasury.
Contractionary.
Ha?
Contractionary.
This is? Yes, this is contractionary. Bureau of Treasury. Bureau of Treasury. Bureau of Treasury. Selling of 10-year. I know. This is expansionary. Ano expansionary man siya? This is expansionary because ang lang gibuhat ani is that si Bureau of Treasury asa ni gibaligya? Gibaligya man niya sa BSP. Different day, sorry. Sorry for the misunderstanding. BSP is autonomous with all the other government agencies, including the Bureau of Treasury. So kung namaligya si Bureau of Treasury, then that means si BSP ang nipalit ani. So nag-release og kwarta ang BSP to Bureau of Treasury by buying the 10-year and 25-year bonds sa Bureau of Treasury para ma-fund siya sa COVID-19. Sorry for that. Sorry for the mistake. Lahi si Bureau of Treasury, lahi si BSP. Okay? So kung namaligya si Bureau of Treasury, ang nipalit ana kay si BSP. Nasabdan? Nasabdan? Sorry.
Para
Lahi.
nasa tanan siya.
Ha?
Mo-apply na sa tanan siya ang Bureau of Treasury. Gipalit sa BSP.
Not all the time lang ga. Namagay times nga si Bureau of Treasury, mamaligya siya, i-auction niya sa public. Napoy times nga i-auction niya sa other government agencies. But in this case, ang reason manggod nga nung gibaligya ni Bureau of Treasury ang 10-year and 25-year global bonds is para ma-sustain ang COVID-19 response measures. Meaning ga, expand sila kwarta. Kay para na kwarta nga ma-release in the economy since nagka-pandemic man para madugang siya sa money in our economy. So, ina na siya. 151 na. Kani, reserve requirement has reduced. Reduction of the reserve requirement, contractionary or expansionary? Reduction of the reserve requirement. That is expansionary. Igamayan ang reserve requirement, meaning more money sa banks. Kay gamay raman ang reserve requirement sa BSP. This one, cumulative reduction of the policy rate or the discount rate. Gigamayan ang policy rate or ang discount rate, expansionary or contractionary. Gigamayan ang discount rate. Expansionary. So basically, during the pandemic, what the BSP did is expansionary gid lang gi-implement kay para maka-bounce back and maka-aid siya sa mga people during the time of the pandemic. Since wala may mga kwarta mga tao, di ba, kay wala may trabaho. So para makatabang siya to fund for the needs of the people, then more money is released in the economy. That's why mo na nga medyo nitaas pod ang presyo pero still controlled gyapon na siya. It's 153. Sorry kayo, nasabtan ba? Am I clear? Sorry for the confusion a while ago. Am I clear? Klaro ba? 9H, I hope it's clear. Sorry kaayo if nagpinaspas na ta. That would be all for today. It's already 1:53. Bye. Sorry for extending.